Welcome. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can build authority with a podcast. Now, you may be a podcast listener, you may have heard of them, you may think they don't work anymore because of YouTube and different technology, but what I can tell you is podcasting is still a growing industry. In America, they did a recent study that said 67% of Americans listen to at least one podcast. Isn't that amazing? That's a huge number of people. It's starting to take over what people listen to in the car. It's starting to be a place or a source of information. And people are listening to series if they like the person that's talking. But one of the biggest problems with a podcast is, how do I do it? It sounds technically hard. And what I wanted to share with you today in this video is a tool called Anchor FM. And it's what I use to produce my podcast. We're going to go behind the scenes and look at exactly what I've been using, and my podcast itself. So let's dig straight in. So if you want to get into this, the website's Anchor, like a ship's anchor.fm, and it's an app on both Android and iPhone. So that's where you'll do a majority of the work, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But when you arrive here, you're going to be able to see the different features. This tool allows you to both produce your podcast, distribute it, and get analytics on what's working, the tracking that makes you change and tweak. So we're going to log into my account, and we're going to go behind the scenes and just see how it actually works. Behind the scenes, actually, this will be quicker. So you can log in with Facebook, Google, or Twitter if you're that way inclined. Now, this is my podcast. I have a podcast personally on the truth about dyslexia, so I do a lot of podcasting on it. And this is something I started about a year ago to give back to a community. So it wasn't done directly for a business purpose, but I knew there was a market of people that were struggling. Now, in just over a year, we're about to crack 28,000 plays, which is pretty mad when you think about it. We haven't done a huge amount of external advertising. We do have a website, but we don't do a lot of external work. Where people are finding this is on the platforms like iTunes, Spotify, and a bunch of other Android platforms that are floating around the place. And I've learned a few things that I'm going to share with you on how to do a great podcast, but I'll just show you around how great this is. So this is on a desktop. On your mobile app, you'll be able to create your podcast from start to finish and distribute it without a touch, and we'll go into the platform very soon. But this gives you an idea of where the podcast is going and how it's changed over a period of time. The most popular episodes of how many people are playing it, which is pretty cool. There's a bunch of interesting information about where people are listening to it. The states is huge. So this is great for international people. It also shows you Apple Podcasts is the biggest bringer of traffic. Spotify is actually not too bad. And then there's a bunch of other stuff around. So this is kind of the statistics. Now, I'm going to jump into the app itself and talk through it with you now. So let's dive into it. Welcome back. Okay, we've made it across to my phone. So we're now in the Anchor app. Now, like every app, you download it, you click on it, and you log in. And this is what you're going to be presented with once you have a podcast. Now, in this system, there's two key things. One is you can look back over your previous podcasts and you can share them. You can see analytics on them and how they're going. You can click on an individual one. So this is one I've only released an hour ago and it's already had 30 plays. Now, the great thing is this shows me, like, Apple Podcasts is definitely my biggest group of followers, as well as a few others. And this goes up over a day because it's my podcast personally is so international. Now, let me dig into why I do this. Not only does it help people, and I think that's a huge driver personally, but it's a great way of me building authority in a niche or an industry. If you're the person who does the podcast on it, even if a lot of people aren't naturally listening, you can send it to potential prospective clients. You can share this content yourself on Facebook and LinkedIn, and it helps position you as an expert. Now, to create a podcast like this, Anchor takes you through the steps. What I do recommend is getting a proper graphic done for your actual series. So mine's Truth About Dyslexia, so we branded up a nice graphic. You want to do something similar. Make sure you've got a catchy headline that makes people want to start. The biggest thing is trying to hook people into actually listening. That is the biggest first step. So once you've done that, it's really that simple. You'll be able to, under settings, account settings, you're able to choose your colors, set your details, bunch of other stuff if you've got a website. You're also then able to just start creating. Now it's automatically going to start sharing this to Apple, to Spotify, and all the major units, and it'll actually talk you through the process, which is pretty cool. But to record a podcast, the thing to remember is to be consistent. So if you want to do one a month, you can do that. If you want to do one a week, you can do that. But make sure they're on the same day. Let me give you an example. I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and they're all between, or majority are between 7 and 10 minutes. The first long one was actually today. So usually they're a short period of time. They're very specific on specific targeted topics. They don't have to be long, but they are consistent. What I find is if you're not consistent, people will actually call you out and say, I was waiting for your podcast, where was it? So it's important to be consistent. Pick topics that your audience are interested in. Think about questions they're asking you in real life and answer them on the podcast. If someone has one question, others do as well. And this will help build your authority in the niche. Now, when you're actually recording, it's as simple as clicking on this little plus button. Now, in this plus button, you're able to record a podcast. You're able to grab in music, so you can actually find pre-done music to break up your podcast. You can have a library of previously recorded stuff, and even some funny sounds if you wanted to go down that avenue. Popcorn. Let's see if it'll play and record. So there's some real odd stuff in here. You can even grab songs from Spotify and Apple. I don't recommend this because it is a bit buggy, but definitely sounds and interludes are great. Now to record, you just press the... I'm not going to do it now just because I don't know if it'll still record. But if you did press that, it would allow you to record a portion of your podcast. You can do it in pieces. So an intro. I usually do an intro, a sound, and then the main podcast. So that's my standard routine. So intro, here's what we're going to talk about today. Let's get into it. A bit of music, and then bang, straight into it. And you're welcome to look at Truth About Dyslexia for my format, but there are so many formats out there and different other things you can do. Once you've recorded, it's going to, let me see if I can show you. It's going to allow you to add some information. So you can name it. It'll ask you to name it. It'll ask you to add a description. So this is important for being found. So about the episode. And then you'll see the different brackets. I've got an intro, and then I've got the main interview itself. Once done, you can just upload it, and it's gone to the world. You'll have a shareable link you can share out to Anchor, and you'll also, within a few hours, usually find it on Spotify and iTunes. So I hope that's been valuable. This is a tool that's fantastic. If you can break out 15 minutes a week to do this, it is huge. It is a really great way to build authority, build great content, and go for gold. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already donated to the great cause that we're supporting through charity, make sure you do reach out to the Give a Little page. And we really would recommend, if there's any chance you can share this with more people,